All right, take two. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 8 heading into week 9. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show when it comes to picking guys up at midnight when waivers clear and getting ahead of the curve when it comes to being ahead of our league mates trying to win our leagues. In general, I have in my notes play your best players and know when to get cute. Who are your best players? Well, those are the ones that are predictable. When to get cute is when you need the points and you're going after those guys with the higher upside and the ability to not give you a 40-degree day. Week 9 buys, you are looking at the Steelers and the Niners. Week 10 buys, you're looking at the Browns, the Pack, the Raiders, and the Seahawks. Week 10, you're looking at the Giants are going to be playing the Panthers. That's probably going to be a roll. Like the Panthers right now do look like they're on the tank, and the Chargers are going to be playing the Titans. That would probably be the defense I'd be a little bit more interested in, even though the Giants are good on defense and the Panthers are tanking. All right, moving on to the 49ers news, first and foremost, like Christian McCaffrey, still tracking him to come back after the week 10 bye. News that he's doing simulated practice stuff. I don't know what that means with his bilateral Achilles tendonitis. The other thing is I talked about this a little in Chasing the Dragon when it comes to like Isaac Garriendo. If you're the CMC owner, you're the Mason Jordan owner, when it comes down to like trying to figure out if I could see that they could put Jordan Mason on the short-term IR, let that shoulder heal up because they have Isaac Garriendo, and they also have CMC coming back. I can see that occurring, and then stashing like Isaac Ariano, seeing like if that occurs and that's your cuff, that's your lottery ticket going forward when it comes down to these guys. Gary Endo in this game, and I had him pulled up. I should bring him back up again. 63% snaps, 14 for 85, a touchdown, 4 for 3 for 17. Probably a little bit more interesting when it comes to Gary Endo if he's going to get that design passing work. He's the converted wide receiver from college. He makes it a little bit more interested. Patrick Taylor was at 7% snaps in this game, and Kyle Juszczyk did have a red zone carry to go along with Gary Endo's 3 red zone carries that he tugged on one of them. When you're wondering about the wide receiver position, and remember, like first and foremost, Debo, he did leave with ribs oblique, whatever that means. They have a bye. He's likely to be come back. If you speculated on your Ricky Pearsall, he was at 59% snaps in this game, 4 for 4 for 38. It probably is going to be off that usage. Juwan Jennings coming out of the bye with that hip. You're also looking at Conley was at 76% snaps. He did have a target. He left with a hamstring. That does look like that's the wide receiver too. And then Cowling was at 18% snaps. Ronnie Bell, was at 22% snaps. He did have a target. And then, the stuff that we can predict, and we're talking about the Bears here in a second. George Kittle, vacated opportunities tend to go to running backs first. CMC's coming back, tight end second. George Kittle, like we might get like full unicorn George Kittle season to finish stuff off at. Bring him back up. So we talk about 94% snaps, 7 for 6 for 128 and a touchdown. All right, the Bears. So this was a favorable matchup, and if I can't roll my guys out there and get the spike week when they're favorable matchups, they're not predictable, and that means like I shouldn't be chasing them. Don't get cute with these guys when it comes down to some of this stuff. DeAndre Swift, 73% snaps, 18 for 129, touchdown. He lost out on a red zone carry that went to Roshan. So again, if you can't predict the stuff because the coaches don't know what they're doing, who knows what's going to go on. DJ Moore, 4 targets. He did have a red zone target to go along with this game. Only 39 air yards. Keenan Allen in this game, 7 targets. He did have 107 air yards. And then Rome still going to be in wide receiver 3 dart throw range, even on 75% snaps, 6 for 3 for 41, 111 air yards. Cole Kmet can't break my heart. He's a tight end. Moving on to the Bengals, first and foremost, Zach Moss was at 52% snaps in this game compared to Chase Brown and his 50% snaps in this game. You're looking at Chase Brown doing 2 red zone carries. He tugged on one of those, 1 red zone target. Zach Moss fumbled in this game and he didn't lose it. 1 red zone carry, 1 red zone target. Zach Moss should be held. I think Zach Moss should be held in all leagues because of the upside. He's still going to have a certain amount of week-to-week role. So again, predicting this stuff. If Chase Brown doesn't get lucky and cash in on his red zone opportunities, and Zach Moss does, we're having a different conversation. I still like still like Chase Brown over Zach Moss, but you can get that week-to-week variance between the two of them, where Zach Moss is actually the guy and he's falling in the end zone compared to Chase Brown. Remember, this was kind of a blowout when it comes to the Bengals in the second half of the game. Jamar Chase did have 4 red zone targets with T. Higgins out. There's no news on T. Higgins in his quad. Yosivas was disappointing on 88% snaps, 3 targets. The main guy, if you're in deep enough leagues that you can take that cute play, that gamble upside. If T. Higgins is out, Jermaine Burton was up to 41% snaps in this game, 3 for 1 for 41, 72 air yards and a red target. Like I could see the spike week happening if T. Higgins is out, with Yosivas disappointing that's out there. The other thing is the tight end situation for the Bengals, and I know I keep saying I'm going to stop tracking these guys, but you're looking at vacated targets when it comes to T, and then a negative game script in the second half for Gesicki to do 53% snaps, 8 for 7 for 73, fumble lost. If you can guess that again, that the Bengals are going to be playing from behind and there's going to be vacated targets, yeah, Gesicki would be a roll. Eric All was disappointing. This would have been the script to see that Eric All gets the spike week, and he didn't get the spike week, so probably not going to be chasing that one. Talking about the Bills, like first thing I got to talk about is Dalton Kincaid. On his 54% snaps, 7 for 4 for 31, and a touchdown, 2 red zone targets, right? So there's going to be a difficulty in predicting where the opportunities, and primarily the red zone opportunities, are going to go when Amari Cooper ramps back up. So Amari Cooper, in his second game with the Bills, he was at 50% snaps in this game, only 2 targets. Now, that's going to go up, and I talk about this in Chasing the Dragon, that I imagine that like he's not going to get fully integrated into the offense until like week 13 coming out of the bye. So if you're going to be speculating on holding him, or you're going to be speculating on buying him, like you're buying a guy like after week 12, to have an idea of how he's going to work in the offense. So that means like your Keon Coleman, and I'm not advising against Keon Coleman. I'm not saying he's bad at football. That's not what the point of this channel is. I don't know how much that 83% snaps, 7 for 5 for 70, and a touchdown, 2 red zone targets, 81 air yards compared to Khalil Shakur's 18 is going to remain consistent once Amari Cooper is integrated in the offense versus Dalton Kincaid, those 7 targets, those 2 red zone targets. Like someone's going to have to get eaten into for Amari Cooper to come into the offense. So Curtis Samuel was out. Matt Collins had his snaps go down to 46% snaps, 0 usage. And then Khalil Shakur, he's going to probably be like the consistent guy in the offense. He was 58% snaps, 10 for 9, 107, again, 18 air yards. So like he's probably going to be the consistent PPR scammer. Dalton Kincaid is going to be a tight end, can't break your heart. If you start screwing around Dalton Kincaid because you didn't go get your David Njoku's or your Brock Bowers or your Kate Ottens or something like that, you're going to miss the massive spike weeks that he's likely going to have. He's going to be in that 6 to 7 targets a game. He's going to have some red zone targets. He's going to have comparable spike weeks to some of the other tight ends that are available. It's just going to be an issue of like, who's going to get eaten into? Is it going to be Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid? I'm going to imagine it's going to be Keon Coleman. Didn't have different roles in the offense going forward in this one. James Cook was at 55% snaps. He'd have all 5 red zone carries, so I don't really care. Ray Davis would stay as the lottery ticket. Ty Johnson, 20% snaps. Didn't have any substantial usage. I want to make sure while I'm here. I don't think he had any usage. 1 target. Trustworthy guy. Let's see. Broncos, I was a little surprised when I was looking at Chasing the Dragon stuff. Like guys are still talking about going out and grabbing Bo Nix. Bo Nix should have been snatched up after week 3. So if he's still available in your league, I don't know what to tell you. When it comes down to that, the one thing that I was looking at Bo Nix's schedule is a week 10. I probably would not be rolling him against Kansas City, and maybe week 13 I wouldn't either. But like the rest of it should be pretty good when it comes to, again, can you predict the fact that he's going to be serviceable in the passing game, and then have the ability to either give you the rushing game or the ability to fall in the end zone? And at this point, I think that's rather consistent based off of the correct matchups. Javonte was at 58% snaps, 3 red zone carries. In this one, he's going to be attached to not a good offense, and he's also going to be volume-based, not very efficient. Jaleel McLaughlin continues to have a certain amount of value. He had 3 red zone opportunities in this game. He tugged on one of them, even if he's on 32% snaps in this one. Estime was at 7% snaps. He did have a red zone opportunity, but again, the Broncos blew out the Panthers. Being able to predict your players. Getting cute with guys. Know what guys are. We're going to talk about like Kyle Pitts here a little bit later. So Cortland Sutton, you probably weren't rolling him out as your wide receiver 1. So like, if you start getting cute with some of these guys and chasing some of these other ones, and I could talk like what's going on in my main money league where I'm getting cute chasing certain other guys, you're going to miss out on the other weeks that these guys have. So Cortland Sutton, 84% snaps, 11 for 8 for 100, fumble lost, 2 red zone targets, 144 air yards. You can have this massive spike week that's on your bench. Just generally know that what you're buying. You're buying the number one attached to not a good offense that's going to be rather inconsistent. And you just got to roll them in your flex wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2 type position, and know that you're going to get like some 40-degree days to go with spike weeks. Now, the other guy to talk about that we were kind of speculating on was Troy Franklin. Some of this is the script. They were up on the Panthers, so like 37% snaps, but in general, if you can't predict it, other guys I would be going after. And then with the tight end situation, Lucas Kroll, he got knocked out with his shoulder. He did come back in. He was only at 37% snaps, 2 for 2 for 18. A little bit more interested in the tight ends because, they're tight ends that can't break my heart. Greg Doltz was out again. Adam Troutman, 56% snaps, 4 for 4 for 85. And a touchdown. He did have 2 red zone targets in this game. I want to make sure, 2 red zone targets. And again, I probably wouldn't be chasing that. Like, if Cortland Sutton's going to have a limited ability to be predictable, like the tight ends, if they weren't Lucas Kroll and they weren't slowly but surely eating into or increasing the snap share and the opportunity, I probably wouldn't be chasing any of these guys. That's why I'm down on like Adam Troutman, if you're wondering. All right, the Browns. Like, hopefully you already speculated on the Browns and their passing their toys in general. When it comes to Jameis Winston, you know what you got. Like, he is going to break your heart. He's gonna throw 3 touchdown passes to the other team on any given week, as much as he's going to have the ability to throw 3 touchdown passes and a little bit of nimbly-bimbly to go along with it. Nick Chubb, if you speculated on Nick Chubb, you may have a league winner. 61% snaps, 16 for 52, 2 targets. He also had all 3 red zone carries when it comes to the Browns. So, like, I'm not really worried about the Western wide receiver or running backs when it comes to the Browns at this point. Cedric Tillman, hopefully you picked him up last week. I did see the comment that someone picked him up last week, and they did roll him this week, so they got the spike week. 90% snaps, 9 for 7 for 99, 2 touchdowns. You are looking at 159 air yards and a red zone target to go along with that. Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore, if you're in deep enough leagues, like, they're probably just wide receiver 3s at this point. Like, 97% snaps, 8 for 5 for 79, 98 air yards for Jerry Jeudy. Elijah Moore, the snap share is going to be down, 71% snaps, 12 for 8 for 95 or 95 air yards in a red zone opportunity. And again, I kind of think that they're the same guy from a fantasy perspective. You may have a little bit higher ceiling when it comes to Jerry Jeudy. Elijah Moore may have be a little bit safer overall, but we generally know, or I shouldn't say we, I use my I words, probably going to be like Cedric Tillman, number 1. Number 2 is going to be Njoku, and then you're going to have to be in a script where they're throwing enough times for Jeudy and Elijah Moore to be somewhat predictive on a week-to-week basis. So again, like Jameis Winston, against a predictive script, against a good offense that has had problems stopping the other team's defense with Baltimore. So 41 pass attempts. And again, like, can we get certain weeks where, like, Nick Chubb is going to get better? He's going to take over the offense. That would be the thing. And then David Njoku, moves in that number 2 role in the offense. So he's always the number 2. He's going to be better. So from a fantasy perspective, like, this is the sub-elite category of tight end. 84% snaps, 7 for 5 for 61, and a touchdown in this game. All right. Let's see. Buccaneers. First and foremost, looking at Baker May. He is tracking to do, like, he's at 8 games, 21 touchdown passes. Would not be surprised if he hits about like 45 on the season if he remains consistent. Vacated targets tend to go to running backs first. So Rachaad White does 6 for 5 for 38 and a receiving touchdown. That's a red zone target. He also had a red zone carry in this game on 56% snaps. Bucky Irving, 42% snaps, 7 for 7 for 40. Again, that's like vacated targets tend to go to running backs first and foremost. Sean Tucker was down to 10% snaps. If you're in deep enough leagues, he should still be held to potentially eat into one of these 2 guys if there's an injury. So I could see that he's going to take over one of the 2 roles if there's an injury. That's why I'd be holding on to him. And then we could also tell the story where, like, enough injury takes place that based off that one spike week, you could get full bell cow. Like, he probably should be held in deeper leagues. Now, when it comes to the wide receiver position, still tracking that Mike Evans is going to come back after the week 11 bye. So like week 12, we can track on Mike Evans. So some of the stuff to talk about with the wide receivers, I should talk about like Cade Otton first. So Cade Otton, 93% snaps, 10 for 9 for 81. 2 touchdowns. You're looking at let's see, you gotta bring him up. Only 44 air yards on his 3 red zone targets. So he is probably going to be the number 1 in the offense until Mike Evans comes back. He may be the number 2 with Jalen Millen on a week-to-week basis until Mike Evans comes back. But the general upgrade would be to the running backs one with these guys. Now, I bring all this up because right now, Jalen Millen, coming out of the week, he did 81% snaps, 7 for 4 for 35, 95 air yards, and the red zone target for the wide receivers. So like he's a role. Like not only is he a hold, he's a role. I could see that with Mike Evans coming back, he could be downgraded into the wide receiver 3 territory for at least for the time being. He should be rolled out based off those numbers. If you're wondering, now some of the deeper guys until Mike Evans comes back, like Trey Palmer, like 70% snaps, 2 for 2 for 29. He's kind of a speed guy. That's what he was coming out of college. None of these guys are going to slot into that like big X Mike Evans role. McMillan is going to be the closest to Godwin, but Godwin, he's a broken tackle yak guy in a way that like Jalen Millen's not going to be as like a vertical slot. If you're wondering about some of that stuff. So the 2 other guys, first, I don't want to talk about him yet. I want to talk about Sterling Shepard. So Sterling Shepard, 62% snap, 5 for 3 for 18. And then he did leave the game and come back in with a hamstring. I think he's limited. He's the savvy vet, ACL and Achilles that he's had in his lifetime. So, he's going to be very limited. Ryan Miller, 41% snaps. This is something we were tracking after week 6. Like he's the main guy that I could see stepping into that Mike Evans role. Obviously it does appear that they gave that role. They were rotating other guys into that role this week. McMillan, 81% snaps. Trey Palmer, 70% snaps. Ryan Millen, 41% snaps behind Sterling Shepard in this offense, 5 for 3 for 19 and 55 air yards. So he would, in deeper leagues, like you could start speculating getting cute rolling him out as a wide receiver 3. I would probably be waiting to see if it goes up after the Kansas City week, and then you could be rolling a dart throw out in week 10 for San Francisco. The other guy to be looking at in this offense is Raheem Jarrett. 27% snaps, 3 for 3 for 58 and 52 air yards. Now, generally speaking, that's low opportunities, and just because he gets more snaps does not necessarily mean that both the efficiency and the opportunities will go up. But I could generally see that like going into week 10, you could be seeing like Ryan Miller and Raheem Jarrett as the number 2 and number 3 behind Jalen McMillan in the snaps right now. So we could be looking at some type of like 1 week dart throw. But Mike Evans is going to come back. He's going to be the big X. Jalen McMillan is likely going to remain in that like slot role with Chris Godwin being out. And then the third guy probably doesn't matter because of K-Dot and Rachaad White. That would be what I would say with all these guys going forward. So maybe like a 1 week rental when it comes to a wide receiver 3 in the offense week 10. All right, Cardinals, James Conner goes full bell cow, 80% snaps, all 6 red zone carries. Benson was at 6% snaps, and DeMercado was at 12% snaps in this game. And this was a knife fight with the Dolphins. Went down to the wire. Marvin Harrison, and I bring this up, like I should go to this guy first. With Trey McBride, like K-Dot, remember, 44 air yards on his 10 targets. Like Trey McBride, 78 air yards on his 11 targets. So like the number 1 in the offense going vertical, more important than like the theoretical like number 1, number 2 in the offense going horizontal in K-Dot versus like Trey McBride. And we'll talk about some of the other air yards for tight ends going forward. So when we talk about Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison is the number 2 in the offense. And this is something that I was speculating about coming into the season, that like it doesn't necessarily mean Marvin Harrison is going to be that guy and he's going to be at like 8 to 12 targets a game range. He may be the wide receiver or the number 2 in the offense in that like 6 to 8 targets a game range. And even though the 132 air yards, like that's just going to be a matter of consistency. I don't think he's going to be necessarily consistent because these are going to go to other guys in the offense. You're going to get McBride as the number 1, and then Michael Wilson is also 70% snaps. It's down, but he did have 2 red zone targets and he tugged on one of them. So like Michael Wilson, he may be the red zone guy. Trey McBride is going to be the number 1, and then Marvin Harrison is going to get what's left over, and that becomes an issue of consistency. So like if you bought Marvin Harrison to be your wide receiver 1, like I'm sorry. If you bought Marvin Harrison to be your wide receiver 2 with upside, like you're going to get that. It's just you're not going to be able to predict on the week-to-week basis. Now, the Chargers, I did talk about this a little bit with Chasing the Dragon, so I guess I'll talk about Dobbins first. 82% snaps, 17 for 57 and a touchdown. 7 for 4 for 11. This is check down monster work. This is not like design passing work. He did have 2 red zone carries, and he tugged on one of them and a red zone target. So like not unvaluable, but again, this is a guy with a lot of nicks in his medical file. So like the lack of consistency or efficiency of the running game, I can imagine he's going to stay somewhat efficient or consistent. Kamani Vidal was at 17% snaps. He did have a red zone carry again. This was kind of a blowout. So I'm not talking about like Vidal being anything more than a lottery ticket attached to this offense. What I am saying is like the Chargers having to generate offense is likely not going to come through the J.K. Dobbins at this point. So it might end up being Justin Herbert, and speculating on the 44 for 49 to go along with like the 32 for 20 for 2 touchdowns. If you need that spot start as a quarterback, I don't know how much you're going to be able to bank on a certain amount of Justin Herbert, but I would predict that Justin Herbert's going to have a better season than Patrick Mahomes at this point. Hot take. So moving on to the wide receiver room, when it comes to Ladd McConkey, you're 62% snaps. This is a blowout. 6 for 6 for 111 and 2 touchdowns. They were both red zone. 2 red zone targets to go along with it. So hopefully he's not on someone else's roster at this point like he is with me in one of my leagues. Let him go. Josh Palmer was at 77% snaps, 4 targets, 80 air yards to Ladd's 73. So like you're not getting the full load when it comes to Ladd McConkey in his role in the offense and the consistency when it comes down to it. Don't care about the Chargers tight end. Will Disley was 7 targets with Hayden Hurst out again. I already talked about like Patrick Mahomes a little bit, and this is the thing. Like I did see the question about like Patrick Mahomes. Like I don't trust him. What made him valuable is the little bit of rushing work that you were going to get on top of higher volume passing and multiple games, multiple touchdown passes. You're not getting any of that. So there are other guys like even a Bo Nix that I would trust more. I could predict more what his outcomes are going to be. And at this point, like for Patrick Mahomes to give me a spike week at this point, like he's probably going to do it on my bench. And then it becomes an issue of like, well, do I immediately trust Patrick Mahomes or, how many weeks that he's going to do a certain amount of spike weeks on my bench before I trust him and try and chase that dragon. And then he disappoints me. So at this point with Patrick Mahomes, if you're not out and out just releasing him, I think he has a certain amount of value just because like certain guys like buying like Dame Browns, I'd probably be packaging him up in a really bad trade and just sending him to somebody else that might want to speculate him on this point. Like again, like a Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford with Cooper Kupp and Puka coming back, I'd probably be a little bit more interested on. The running back situation when it comes to the Chiefs, 6 red zone carries, 1 red zone target for Kareem Hunt. It doesn't really matter if he's not entirely efficient. He's the guy when they get down there that they give it to. Carson Steele was at 11% snaps. P. Ryan was at 31% snaps. Steele does look like he's the breather back. P. Ryan is the trustworthy guy when it comes down to that, and we're still waiting on a certain amount of news with CEH, how he's going to eat in the backfield. Probably, if I were to guess, like you're either looking at P. Ryan being inactive or Steele being inactive because he could take over either one of those roles. He could theoretically kick Kareem Hunt to the curb. I don't know if there's necessarily a big downgrade from overall like athletic ability from Kareem Hunt to Clyde. If Clyde is active, it would probably downgrade, or it could downgrade Hunt. It is likely right now based off the usage going to downgrade Steele or P. Ryan. Xavier Worthy. He's going to be in that wide receiver 3 range, 8 targets, 63 air yards, 2 red zone targets in this one. If you're chasing all that stuff, Justin Watson is going to be in wide receiver 3 range because he's the number 1 wide receiver when it comes to snap share, 76% snaps. If you're going to be chasing any of that stuff, no news on Juju's hamstring. Sky Moore was put on IR. Let's see, Justin Ross was not activated. Let's see, and then moving to here. First game, DeAndre Hopkins was 32% snaps, 3 for 2 for 29 in this game. So like that's going to go up. We could speculate like probably going to eat into the Justin Watson role in the offense. The 76% snaps, like what are you going to get out of him? Like eight targets a game, like not something to shake a stick at. But probably I don't know if he's going to win you a league. When it comes to chasing, Travis Kelce, 79% up, 12 for 8 for 90 and a touchdown, a fumble not lost. Also, remember, like K. Dot in the 44 Air yards, you're looking at Travis Kelce doing 71 air yards on his 12 targets, 3 red zone opportunities in this one. So yeah, and then the other thing is right now, probably this is not going to remain consistent because of Hopkins coming in. Noah Gray was 72% snaps after 67% snaps. Like he's the de facto, wide receiver 3 when it comes to snap share overall. And then Jody Fortson was put on IR with a knee. When it comes to the Colts, this is one of the fun ones. Just like the Browns last week, to be speculating on the offense. So Anthony Richardson gets benched. I don't have a lot to say on this. This is not a real football channel. This is a fantasy football channel. Part of this is coaching. We shouldn't know that Anthony Richardson is having some of these problems. We just shouldn't. Whether that's on the field or him pulling himself out of the game because he's tired. We shouldn't know anything about this. This is the coach not protecting the player. Not trying to hide some of the deficiencies. I also will talk about the fact that from an organizational standpoint, if he wasn't ready to play, he shouldn't have been on the field. I didn't think that he should have been handed the keys last year because of so much developmental work that he needed to do. Didn't mean that I didn't think that there are flashes of things that can make him very special. It just becomes an issue like, should an unpolished product like this be put on the field? And the argument being like that he just needs more reps. Like sometimes you can do some of that rep works some other places than like, throwing him to the wolves on Sunday. Anyway, the upgrade Joe Flacco automatically is going to push all the wide receivers up until pretty much like, roll and find out what goes on. So Jonathan Taylor, first game back, 81% snaps. I think only 2 opportunities went to the other 2 running backs in this game. So Michael Pittman, and this is with Anthony Richardson, 132 air yards on his 6 targets. Like he's going to probably go back to being like a solid wide receiver 2. The bigger issue with Michael Pittman right now is probably like whatever's going on with his back. That probably bothers me a little bit more, but the snap share's there. 95% snaps in this game. The next guy that I would probably be interested in is Josh Downs. They may be both wide receiver 2s. 70% snaps, 9 for 4 for 109 and a touchdown. If he's available, we can upgrade him because of Flacco. Let's see. He had 131 air yards in this game. And then we can start speculating the next guy. Alec Pierce goes back to being like that dart throw wide receiver 3. 78% snaps, 99 air yards on his 4 targets. And then the main thing to be monitoring in all this is I imagine that Adonai Mitchell is going to be eating into Alec Pierce at this point. If I can find him. I can't even find him. I don't know. They're right there. So he's at 20% snaps, 4 for 1 for 9. They're trying to get him the football when he's on the field on his 20% snaps. He had 81 air yards. You're probably going to still have like spike weeks out of Adonai Mitchell. If one of those lands, he's going to have a spike week. And right now it's just going to be an issue that he's probably not going to eat into anybody in any significant way for it to be predictable without an injury. Moving on to the Redskins, and this is one of those things like, don't get cute, play your best players when it comes to this things. Like, it doesn't matter how the sausage is made. Jane Daniels, like, Hail Mary to win the game. Just roll your best guys out there, even in bad matchups. Brian Robinson, 47% snaps, 6 red zone carries. Austin Eckler, 57% snaps. You're looking at red zone carry, red zone target on top of this. So like he's just still like low grade RB2 on a week to week basis based off of red zone opportunities, being on the field, passing work. Scary Terry, 72% snaps, 8 for 5 for 125, 178 air yards. So like there's going to be like a massive Scary Terry week, one of these weeks, like 30-point week at this point. I would imagine that he's going to be hovering around. Noah Brown, 81% snaps, the Hail Mary catch on top of that. So like probably puts him in the snap share, just would put Noah Brown in wide receiver 3 area just from being on the field that much. Luke McCaffrey, like less interested in tracking him, 34% snaps. Zach Ertz, if he's available, he's probably the number 2 in the offense, which means from a tight end perspective, like he should be a weekly role. 76% snaps, 11 for 7 for 77 in this game. You also are looking at 94 air yards, and remember K. Dotton, 44, and you're looking McBride was like 78 and 71 when it comes to Kelce. So 94 air yards is really good, and 1 red zone opportunity to go along with it. Let's see, Cowboys, this one, and this was one of those like weird script games where they were fighting their way back into it late. So like, I don't have a lot to say about the tight ends or the wide receivers in this one. The main one is Rico Dowdle was out. He shows up to the stadium like, being ill, and then he doesn't play. And then you're looking at Dalvin Cook getting his first activation of the year, 27% snaps, 6 for 12, 1 for 1 for 10. I watched him. He didn't look good. He didn't look bad either. Zeke falls in the end zone on his 45% snaps to go along with it. That's about. The offense is so inconsistent that I probably wouldn't be chasing any of the running backs. Like Dowdle was the one guy that I'd be the most interested in, and at this point, like I imagine that Cook could eat into Dowdle's work, and Zeke hasn't been efficient, so I'm not really interested in any of that unless like there's a consolidation that goes on. Tua's back when it comes to the Dolphins. So now we can start saying like we can predict better when it comes to knowing that we can actually like have usable weeks when it comes to the guys, the toys. Devin A-Chain, 58% snaps, 10 for 97, 8 for 6 for 50, and a touchdown. So generally speaking, he's the wide receiver 3 in this offense. When it comes down to it, he had 1 red zone carry, 2 red zone targets. He tugged on one of them. The other one to be looking at if he's available, 5 red zone carries, 2 tugs when it comes to Raheem Mostert. So that's going to put him in the running back 2 territory. And then Jeff Wilson was a scratch, and then Jalen Wright was 5% snaps. Now, I bring this up in this knife fight. The fear that we're going to get some type of running back by committee didn't happen. So, that's probably something better to be keeping A-Chain where he is when it comes to like the overall value. And then Mostert, like that would probably be the guy that I'd be a little bit more worried is going to eat into, especially because like A-Chain is going to get that design passing work as a wide receiver 3. The other thing, and this is probably more from a dynasty situation, is that Malik Washington, he outsnapped OBJ 25-17. Eagles, this was a second half blowout of the Bengals, so take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. So if you're kind of new to the channel, and I've talked about this before, I don't particularly like guys from a fantasy perspective that are going to cannibalize each other. So this was a Devontae Smith week. He gets the receiving touchdown on his 7 targets. AJ Brown, I mean, still a good week. This is not a 40-degree day. 6 for 5 for 84 in this one overall. And then when you're looking at like your Dallas Goedert, no news on him when it comes to the hamstring at this point. There are certain weeks that are going to be Dallas Goedert weeks. This is generally how the offense has been designed going forward. That would mean that like if you're in deep enough leagues like Grant Calcaterra, 93% snaps, 3 for 3 for 58. He's very athletic. The question is, can we predict in a league that is deep enough that I need to be rolling Grant Calcaterra out to get that theoretical spike week before Dallas Goedert comes back, if that makes sense. But if you rolled him 3 for 3 for 58, you're like, there you go. Probably not bad, but again, like Kate Otten would have been the guy to be chasing this week when it comes down to that stuff. Falcons in this game, Bijan, you're looking at red zone target, and he tugged on it. Tyler Algier, and again, like I don't have a lot to say about Bijan because he did Bijan things. This is generally what we wanted him to do. 13 for 63, 7 for 7 for 43, and a touchdown. Tyler Algier in this game, 35% stuff, 12 for 33, and you're looking at a red zone carry to go along with it. Let's see. So like he's a cuff. I shouldn't have to explain that. Drake London, he had 38 air yards compared to Darnell Mooney's 127 air yards. That's what happens sometimes. Again, with these guys cannibalizing each other. And then finally, like Kyle Pitts, know what you paid for. You bought a guy that had a theoretical unicorn upside, but was probably going to be in that range of like weekly start tight end. So like don't get cute with these guys. Like know what you paid for. Like 48% snaps. Yeah, I don't like that, but the 5 for 4 for 91 and 2 touchdowns, I do. So like just know, like, am I trying to get like a unicorn, or do I have one of those tight ends that like they're tight ends, they're not going to break my heart, but there are other weeks that they can give you that massive spike week when it comes to them. Moving on to the Giants, with Tyrone Tracy, he had a concussion in the game. He didn't finish the like last 4 minutes of the game off. 57% snaps, 20 for 145, touchdown, 3 for 2 for 5. Again, I would like to see design passing work out of him, but I'm not the coach. He is a converted wide receiver when it comes down to that stuff. You're looking at 1 red zone carry, 1 red zone target when it comes to him. Devin Singletary combined on his 39% snaps, 2 carries, 3 red zone targets in the game. Devin Singletary would get the upgrade when it comes to if Tyrone Tracy misses, and right now I would be tracking it that he would miss because this is a quick turnaround, Monday night game to Sunday night game. The other thing, and I did see this pop up, why a guy like Tyrone Tracy is so much valuable, or more valuable than Devin Singletary. Even if Devin Singletary is better at football, than Tyrone Tracy, and it's because like you're leaving a certain amount of yards and points on the field. Like so, the 45-yard touchdown that Tyrone Tracy had, that he got clipped going over the goal line. Devin Singletary is not going to do that. He's a 4.6 guy. Tyrone Tracy is a 4.4 guy. You have Devin Singletary pop that. He gets knocked out at the 15-yard line. You just left 7 points on the board that you have to magically try and figure out a way to get it into the end zone. Otherwise, you're going to kick a field goal. That's the difference between those two guys. Why these guys like an Anthony Richardson should be developed, because they have the ability to disproportionately change the outcome of your games based off like the opportunities that they have. I shouldn't have to explain that anyway. Looking at other guys that have the ability to win your league versus the guys that like don't have the ability to win your league, and why I tend to stay away from these guys. So Wan'Dale Robinson, -1 air yard in the game. On 86% snaps, 5 for 5 for 30. Now he did have a red zone target, but like that's just generally never going to be able to win you a week. It's going to be very difficult for that guy to be popping, 80-yard touchdowns on those carries. Same thing with like Tyrone Tracy. So Malik Neighbors, even though he gives you a 40-degree day on 13 for 7 for 71 in this game, he has 185 air yards. So like your Jamar Chases, like I don't like Jamar Chase because he's going to get eaten into on a certain amount of weeks. He gives me that like 30 or 40 a point week. In the right week, I win my league. He's going to win me a certain amount of weeks just because he has such high upside. Same thing with Malik Neighbors versus like your Wan'Dale Robinson. I won't necessarily pick up your Wan'Dale Robinson because I'm trying to play for a 40-degree day, and I would like to rather be trying to win my week and my league. Darius Slayton, 124 air yards in this game. Like he's going to have a certain degree of like wide receiver 3 range of outcomes when it comes down to that. This is probably going to remain a certain degree, consistent when it comes to if teams try and take away Neighbors, he can be the main beneficiary over Wan'Dale. There will likely still be Wan'Dale Reeks when it comes down to that. And then from a dynasty perspective, Theo Johnson, 97% snaps, 4 for 3 for 35, trending in the right direction. The other thing is if you're in deep enough leagues enough that you can be stashing Daniel Bellinger, 1% snaps in this game, I imagine that he may be on the trade block in the next couple of weeks to a tight end needy team. All right, the Jags, they're in full tank mode. They traded Cam Robinson to the Vikings today. So some of my notes, like I gotta tiptoe around because they were written yesterday. Like when I was saying like, hey, vacated targets, they tend to go to running backs. So buy low on Travis Etienne. So right now, and I'll move over to this. Brian Thomas goes from like 2 to 4 weeks with a chest injury to maybe he's going to play this week. And then Gabe Davis goes from like getting knocked out with a shoulder to he's playing this week. Christian Kirk, he looks like he is knocked out for the year with a broken clavicle. And then, so that downgrades like going after Parker Robertson. You're probably buying like some type of wide receiver 3 when it comes down to that with him. All right, distracted by real world stuff. So vacated targets going to running backs first. That would have meant that like Travis Etienne would have been a buy. But now with it looking like Brian Thomas is going to be active this week or has a chance to be active and Gabe Davis is going to be active, like not even going to be speculating on Parker Washington. So it doesn't really matter with some of this. Like if Etienne is active, to be speculating on him moving up. And right now it does look like the Jags are in full tank mode when it comes down to it. Tank Bigsby in this game with Etienne out, all 3 red zone carries again with him. And theoretically, there could have been a possibility that you're going to get the upgrade on the vacated targets and the red zone opportunities with him, with the wide receivers, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. Dearness Johnson was at 33% snaps in this game. He's still going to be the trustworthy back when it comes down to it. Evan Ingram was at 82% snaps in this game. He did get a red zone opportunity. That's with all the wide receivers getting knocked out of the game. So like this would downgrade him. Shouldn't say downgrade him. This would keep him what we already thought he was going to be. If there would have been vacated targets based off the wide receivers, I could see it going to him. But with Brian Thomas coming back, Brian Thomas is likely going to be the red zone opportunity guy. It's going to downgrade or keep Evan Ingram like in that know what you got, like volume based low low depth of target tight end type guy with limited red zone opportunities. All right, when it comes to the Jets, like this is not a real football channel, so I'm not going to really talk about like how bad the Jets are when it comes down to that. Between the two wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, you're looking at 8 targets, 5 receptions, 113, and that's to go along with Devontae Adams in this game. He was at 94% snap, 6 for 4 for 40 or 54. Didn't write down any air yards or any red zone targets, so there must not have been anything that was significant. Breece Hall in this one, this is a little strange. 74% snap, 16 for 80, 3 for 1 for 9. This primarily is the low targets and the low receptions that why I would be buying like Breece Hall as a unicorn in this offense. Now, the other thing to look at in this one, as I have the Raiders kept up, is that Braylon Allen comes in. So Breece Hall does 5 red zone carries, 1 red zone target in this game. Braylon Allen comes in on his 31% snaps, 12 for 32. He does vulture on one of his 2 red zone carries from your Breece giving you that like 40-degree day that you paid for him to give you the floor of. Tyler Conklin did tug on his red zone target. I'm not particularly interested in that. Jeremy Ruckert was up to 37% snaps. Again, trying to track that. So the Giants are really good at football, and they don't care about your fantasy lineup, and they blew out the Titans in this game. So some of the stuff is like a little wonky. So 3 red zone opportunities when it comes to Jahmyr Gibbs. He does score on a 70-yard touchdown. David Montgomery had 4 red zone opportunities that he tugged on one, and he threw a touchdown pass in this game. Also, the Sun God, I did see this question brought up about the Sun God. So right now, kind of the beneficiary of Jameson Williams being out for like one more game with that suspension. Don't really care about like some of the other stuff that's coming on with him. I talked about this in the offseason, that not being able to predict where the opportunities are going to go on a week-to-week basis. So he's able to get a touchdown on his 2 for 2 for 7, the Sun God. Going forward with Laporta and the Sun God, this is just me when it comes to like trading these guys. Like I don't know how much you're going to predict where the opportunities are going outside of a certain amount of opportunities going to Gibbs and Montgomery on a week-to-week basis. I think Montgomery is also, you probably bought Montgomery as a running back too, so I think it's like generally okay to be looking at him down the line. But he's going to be limited on a week-to-week basis. The ability to fall in the end zone on a certain amount of consistency other than their good offense. When it comes to the wide receivers in general, I don't know how much you can track that they're going to score touchdowns, let alone get like the actual volume of opportunities to give you anything more than this heavy degree of volatility from the players. And that includes like Sam Laporta, even though he's a tight end, you probably spent on Sam Laporta. So like he does, 6 for 6 for 48 and a touchdown. Again, vacated opportunities to go to running backs first, tight end second. Jameson Williams was out. This was the week to be rolling to Sam Laporta. So also the week to probably be selling him if you can get something on return on investment when it comes to him. But that's just me. When it comes to the Packers, right now we are tracking that Jordan Love has a groin, and they also have a Week 10 bye. So I would not be surprised that they roll Malik Willis against Detroit, and then they get the bye week to get Jordan Love healthy on this one. Probably would be a little bit more interested in rolling Malik Willis as a 1-week rental versus Jordan Love and the ability for Jordan Love to throw touchdown passes. Like that's the difference. Like I think Malik Willis has looked better on the season, and then he's going to have the rushing upside with the ability to fall in the end zone. So as a 1-week rental streamer, Malik Willis versus Jordan Love. Jordan Love probably upgrades the toys, but again, we have the problem with the Packers, but there's too many good toys, and we can't really predict where the opportunities are going to go around. Outside of Josh Jacobs does 4 red zone opportunities in this game. He falls in the end zone twice. And then you're looking at like roster cuss Emmanuel Wilson. He does 1 red zone carry, 1 red zone target in this game. And then this was kind of a blowout. Chris Brooks got in. He did a red zone carry also in this game. Romeo Doubs would be the one guy that I probably would be thinking that he's going to be the least volatile, and I still think he's going to have sub 40-degree days because of how many other guys are going to be out there. He does 84% snaps, 6 for 3 for 72, red zone target, 98 air yards. When it comes down to that, Christian Watson was up to 74% snaps. This was a season high, 6 for 4 for 39. But like how I would see that he gets used in the offense, he did have a red zone target. He also only had 47 air yards in this game. And then Jaden Reed, like Shouldn't have to say like downgrades him if you can't predict what the usage is going to be on a week-to-week basis. He did 3 for 2 for 55 on 59 percent snaps. He also had a carry in this game. And then Dontavian Wicks, you're looking at 30% snaps, 2 for 2 for 11 on 9 air yards. And I bring up like why this becomes an issue of being able to predict anything. Bo Melton in the game on his 17% snaps, 1 target, did 23 air yards. So the only other guy that besides Josh Jacobs that I probably would be really interested in, rolling out there on a week-to-week basis would be Tucker Kraft, and that's because he is a tight end. You're looking at like 84% steps, 3 for 3 for 78, touchdown. That's on a red zone target on top of that. So like, yeah, Jaden Reed is a weekly roll. Dobbs is probably a weekly roll. Christian Watson is probably a dart throw. But I don't know how much I really would feel comfortable rolling them out outside of getting cute and trying to catch a spike week from one of these guys. Panthers. So they did trade Deontay Johnson today to the Ravens. We'll talk about the Ravens here in a second. So between the quarterback situation of Andy Dalton being out with that thumb, that car accident, the main thing to look at with Bryce Young and theoretically like vacated opportunities would be, can the offense be predictable enough that we can get a certain amount of pass attempts and then a certain amount of targets to go to certain guys? That would be the main thing to look at. Chuba Hubbard, he has a red zone carry, red zone target on his opportunities in this game. This is kind of a blowout in this one going on. And then Miles Sanders in limited snaps, 34% snaps. He did get a red zone target. So he's still a cuff, 7 for 7 for 38. If you're cuffing. Now, I did see the other day with the head coach talking about like Jonathan Brooks, because of how bad the season is going, Jonathan Brooks may not get activated this year. So that's something to be paying attention to, let alone like what his role in the offense will be if he does get activated with Chuba there going forward. So Deontay Johnson, he gets traded to the Ravens. Right now, you're looking at Xavier Leggett probably being the number one on the offense, like 62% snaps in this game, 7 for 4 for 34, a touchdown. That was a red zone target, 113 air yards. So yeah, if you can buy him for a bag of chips with vacated opportunities. And then the other thing is, that was the Daggett again. Coker's probably the guy that I think is going to be cheaper to buy. May have a little bit more consistency. Again, the role in the offense, like Leggett may be more the big play guy. Coker may be more the opportunity guy. 69% snaps, 6 for 4 for 78, a touchdown, 3 red zone targets, 103 air yards. That would be the guy I'd be more interested in on. Leggett probably has the ability to have higher spike weeks because of the athletic ability. Coker may be the better football player. Again, like what do you need? What are you going to be rolling him out there? Probably like Coker is going to give you wide receiver 2. And then again, if you're chasing Leggett, it's because you want that spike week in that like flex wide receiver 3 type position. And then if you're wondering, Mingo was at 54% snaps in the game, 3 targets. David Moore, this is probably the guy that bothers me a little bit more trying to track what's going to go on. Again, this was kind of a blowout. 82% snaps, 5 targets to go along with this one. Tommy Tremble was back. I probably would not be chasing any of these guys anymore because of the situation. 61% snaps, 3 targets. Downgrade to Jatavion Sanders, 36% snaps, only 1 target in this game. Let's see. Moving on to the Patriots. Certain things to talk about, like chasing bad offenses. With Drake May, like he's out with a concussion right now. Like he upgrades the entire offense. The other thing to look at is, I think there was a conversation with the front office and the coaching staff. So Ramondre is up to 81% snaps, 20 for 48, 2 touchdowns, 3 for 3 for 17. He scores on the last play of the game. And I bring this up because Antonio Gibson was at 19% snaps in this game. And Jermichael Hasty goes from 32% snaps to 33% snaps to no usage this game. It sounds like someone reminded somebody that they paid Ramondre and Antonio Gibson and they didn't pay Jermichael Hasty. Now, if you're chasing the wide receivers attached to the Patriots, I would not be doing this. I would not advise it doing this because of the limited opportunities. DeMario Douglas, 57% snaps, 3 targets in this game. Tyquan Thornton, 18% snaps. He did have a red zone target. Then you're looking at like Keyshawn Butte. He's the wide receiver 1, 82% snaps, 6 for 3 for 46 in this game, 74 air yards and a red zone target. That's the guy to be chasing right now when it comes down to it. And this has been like relatively consistent with the snap share overall and the opportunities to score touchdowns. The other thing is Kendrick Bourne was at 78% snaps, 3 targets. One of those was a red zone target. KJ Osborne was at 13% snaps. He did have a target. And then if you're in deep enough leagues that you can be stashing your Javon Baker, he was active. He was used as a returner. When it comes to Hunter Henry, the red zone target went to Austin Hooper this week. If you're wondering that thing, the Raiders, again, this is another one I would not be chasing if I could get away with it. Samir White was at 3% snaps, and the only reason why I even bring him up is he actually had a red zone carry in this game. Alexander Madison, you're looking at 66% snaps, 14 for 15, 5 for 5 for 29, 7 red zone carries for 0 yards, plus 1 red zone target and a catch for 0 yards. Amir Abdullah was at 29% snaps. Let's see. Jacoby Myers was at 81% snaps. If you want to be chasing this, between Myers, 7 for 6 for 52, 2 red zone targets. Trey Tucker was at 91% snaps. He did have a red zone target. I'm probably not interested in him. And then DJ Turner did score on his red zone target. Brock Bowers, obviously he's a tight unicorn, so I'm not going to talk too much about him. The Rams with Puka and Cooper Kupp coming back. So Puka was at 57% snaps, 9 targets, 7 receptions, and see, pull him up. 106 yards, 95 air yards, and then Cooper Kupp in this game, 58% snaps, 8 for 5 for 51, and a touchdown. Again, this is going to be another one of like how predictive these guys can be. Who's going to get the red zone opportunities? It may be Kupp. Who's going to get the air yards? It may be Puka. Does that necessarily mean that like it downgrades them from like theoretically having the ability to have like these high upside weeks? Like their weekly roles probably like high end wide receiver 2s, and that's if it's relatively consistent. I can also see the offense kind of changing a little bit. Generally speaking, like can I see a week where we're gonna like a 20 target week for one of the guys and 3 target week, and then vice versa? Whether or not we're gonna get like the consistent distribution of targets between the two guys. And this was a knife fight game when it comes to the Vikings and the Rams in this one. Kyron Williams, he had 7 red zone opportunities in this game and also 7 targets. They weren't very efficient. He did tug on one of those, so like he is a unicorn. With this, and remember the snap shares were down on Puka and Kupp because they're likely back from injury. Demarcus Robinson was at 85% snaps. He was a fringe wide receiver 3 coming in the season. He did have 2 tugs. One of those was a red zone target to go along with it. Tutu was down to 13% snaps. Tyler Johnson was at 38% snaps. Jordan Whittington was out with that shoulder. The only reason why I bring this up, if you're in certain leagues, if you're waiting on Tyler Higbee to come back, he may not come back at all this year. Something's going on with the tight ends when it comes to Rams. So Colby Parkinson was down week after week, 64% snaps. He's kind of a blocking tight end. You're looking at Davis Allen at 39% snaps, and then Hunter Long, he's the athlete. He's the receiving tight end, 42% snaps. And this is kind of been remaining a little bit interesting going on. Like if there's a guy to track that may have a certain amount of value down the line, it would be Hunter Long. But again, even talking about this is a little weird because like Puka, Cooper Kupp, then maybe Demarcus Robinson before the tight end even matters. And then you're also looking at like Kyron Williams eating so much of the red zone opportunities. All right. When it comes to the Ravens, again, they don't care about your fantasy lineup. So the only 2 guys I really care about are Lamar Jackson and then Derrick Henry, maybe Mark Andrews. So when you're looking at Deontay Johnson coming in, it doesn't really matter what Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman did. And they were at like season highs when it comes to like usage. Bateman was at 84% snaps in this game. And then Zay Flowers was at 87% snaps, but he had 12 targets, which matches his week 5 total. And with Deontay Johnson coming in, like maybe you can get a couple more weeks of Bateman and Flowers. And then you're going to have like 3 guys cannibalizing each other when it comes to opportunities and being able to predict which week is going to be whose guy's week outside of like a dart throw flex type range. When it comes to these guys, I don't think like they're all going to have their certain role in the offense. Deontay Johnson can be the go get a first down guy. Zay Flowers can end up being the design opportunity guy, and then Bateman can be like the stretch the field guy down the field, down the field. Like it's going to be a mess from a fantasy perspective. Mark Andrews was at 74% snaps, 5 for 5 for 36, 2 red zone opportunities in this game. He did tug on one of them. Isaiah Likely was at 69% snaps, 4 for 4, 47 red zone opportunity. And again, they can come out on any given week and decide this is how they want to beat somebody. Let's see. Moving on to the Saints. So Derek Carr may be active in week 9. Spencer Rattler got pulled for Jake Haener. Remember, vacated targets tend to go to running backs first. And I bring this up because Alvin Kamara in this blowout, he had 11 targets to go along with this. There was no red zone opportunities when it comes to the Saints running backs. Jamal Williams at 32% snaps. You're looking at Kendre Miller leaving the game again with a hamstring. Chris Olave, and I imagine like this is going to stay somewhat consistent because of the lack of competition for targets with Rashid Shaheed going out like 14 for 8, 107. You're also looking at where's it at? 170 air yards and 3 red zone targets. So like this would be a buy right now. If you're wondering, Cedric Wilson would be an out with a hip. Bub Means looks like he's got the dreaded high ankle sprain. Mason Tipton, he would be the guy that I could see moving into the Rashid Shaheed role. So 77% snaps, 2 for 2 for 14, and then you're looking at theoretically Derek Carr coming back. I probably wouldn't be chasing Taysom Hill outside of like really ugly streamer land. And then Juwan Johnson again, like he got knocked out of the game with a concussion, a vacated opportunity. Like I'm not tracing Juwan Johnson 4 for 3 for 48. Seahawks. So this was kind of a blowout in this game. So take some of this with a grain of salt. So first and foremost, like DK Metcalf, like who knows what's going to go on with that sprained knee, that sprained MCL that he has. Ken Walker, he did have 3 red zone carries in this game. He didn't cash any of these in, like very inefficient. 5 targets, didn't get the uptick in the targets again. That was partly because they were getting blown out. The Zach Charbonnet usage, most of that's later in the game. When he did score a touchdown, the game was already kind of out of reach on that one. Tracking those vacated targets, Tyler Lockett, like 78% snaps, 3 targets in this game. JSN, 82% snaps, 6 for 7 for 69, like low air yards in this one. He did have a red zone target. Jake Bobo did get the uptick in snaps, but he didn't get the opportunities. 76% snaps, only 1 target in this one. Noah Fant didn't get the uptick when it comes to opportunities. 61% snaps, 4 for 3 for 22. And AJ Barner, slight uptick, 37% snaps, 2 for 2 for 34. Monday Night Football, when it comes to the Steelers, the big thing on this one is going to be like Najee, 59% snaps, 19 for 114 in this game. 3 red zone carries, 4 for 3 for 17. Like you're getting like pretty close to like RB1 usage. The main thing that's going to hurt him is Jaylen Warren, 39% snaps, 9 for 46, 4 for 2 for 13. He did have 2 red zone carries and a red zone target. You're going to get that flop where Jaylen Warren has that week based off the usage, and he's going to fall in the end zone, and Najee's going to have that sub 40 degree day. Don't have a lot to say about the wide receivers when it comes to the Steelers. If you're wondering about where's he at? Calvin Austin. So 48% snaps. He did have a red zone target, and he tugged on it. And then he also scored a punt return. But again, 58% snaps. Van Jefferson is the wide receiver 2. He was at 80% snaps in this game. Roman Wilson went on IR. When it comes to this, Texans, remember, vacated targets tend to go to running backs first. So the main guy that's probably going to get an upgrade from this is Dare. And then that's on top of Joe Mixon already doing 6 targets in this game. That's with the news that Stephon Diggs is likely done for the year. So I've seen different things, ACL or meniscus. So like it says a torn ACL, like that's what it's looking at right now. So he's done for the year. And then the next guy up that we could definitely look being an uptick would be Dalton Schultz. 66% snaps, 6 for 452. We also had an uptick in Cade Stover, 48% snaps, 3 for 2 for 19 in this game. And then the other thing to think about, like why this may or may not matter long term, is Nico is going to be back eventually from that hamstring. So it becomes just an issue of like from a 1 week perspective, who would I be chasing this offense? Like Tank Dell, obvious role. Robert Woods was at 34% snaps. Xavier Hutchinson was at 62% snaps, and then Mechie was at 28% snaps, 4 for 3 for 29, 2 red zone targets. I mean, there are better wide receiver 3s to be chasing, but I guess that would be the guy that may be the other guy to get the uptake if you want that limited, trying to predict out that limited sample size of opportunities. All right, Texans, I don't have a lot to say on them. They're bad. The main three things would be looking at, like Tony Pollard goes 82% snaps with Tyjae Spears being out. Calvin Ridley, I don't know how much I want to be chasing this. 15 for 10, 143. You are looking at 137 air yards and 2 red zone opportunities. The other one to be chasing, like in your deeper leagues, like the uptick with Hopkins leaving, Nick Westbrook Akine is up to 92% snaps. He did have 2 red zone targets. He tugged on one of them. And then the Vikings, so they did trade for Cam Robinson to upgrade their left tackle who went on IR. Sam Darnold has a pretty good schedule for the next few weeks if you want to be chasing that. And again, those passing touchdowns when it comes to that. The Colts, the Jags, who are on full tank mode, and then even Tennessee, they're so bad that like you could probably take advantage of a better defense when it comes down to that. Running back situation, like Aaron Jones was at 92% snaps, full bell cow, all 4 red zone opportunities. Ty Chandler was down to 4% snaps in this game. And then in this script, you're looking at Jalen Naylor was only at 42% snaps. Munt was at 62% snaps, and Oliver was at 72% snaps. The reason why I bring all this up is we are looking at Hawk being added to 53-man schedule. He's on scheduled to make his debut week 9 to be going along with that. So that's basically all I got when it comes to after waivers this week, and hopefully I will be back Friday with the grift.